The stagecoach lurched to a stop in front of the dusty depot, and Lillian Foster stepped down onto the weathered boards of Montrose, Colorado, clutching nothing but a worn leather satchel and a letter that had traveled halfway across the country to find her in the cramped tenement she had called home in Philadelphia. The September sun of 1883 beat down relentlessly, so different from the gray autumn she had left behind 3 days ago. Lillian smoothed her traveling dress, dark blue cotton that had seen better days, and looked around at the scattered buildings that made up this frontier town. Mountains rose in the distance, their peaks still touched with snow despite the warmth of the day. Everything smelled of dust and horses and something wild she could not quite name. She pulled the letter from her pocket for the 100th time, unfolding the creased paper carefully. The words were still there, still real, though part of her kept expecting them to vanish like morning fog. My dearest niece Lillian, if you are reading this, then I have passed from this world. I leave you my property in Montrose, Colorado. It is not much, but it is yours. The ranch house and the land. Find Samuel Cross. He will help you. Your loving Aunt Margaret Fletcher. Lillian had barely known Aunt Margaret, her father's sister who had headed west 20 years ago and rarely wrote. But now this woman she hardly remembered had left her something precious beyond measure. A home, land, a chance to escape the suffocating poverty of the city, the factory work that had been slowly killing her spirit. You need help with that bag, miss. A weathered man with a badge pinned to his vest approached her. The sheriff, she assumed. I am looking for Samuel Cross, Lillian said, her voice steadier than she felt. Do you know where I might find him? The sheriff's eyebrows rose slightly. Sam Cross. He is out at the Fletcher place most days. That is about 5 miles west of town. You have business with him. I am Lillian Foster. Margaret Fletcher was my aunt. She left me her property. Understanding dawned on the sheriff's face, followed by something that looked like sympathy. I see. Well, Margaret was a good woman. Sorry for your loss. Sam has been keeping the place running since she took sick last month. You can likely find him there now, or I can send someone out to fetch him. I would prefer to go there myself, if transportation can be arranged. The sheriff nodded and gestured toward a livery stable across the dusty street. Tom over there can rent you a horse and buggy. Tell him I sent you. And miss, Sam Cross is a good man, one of the best. Your aunt trusted him completely. Lillian thanked him and made her way across the street, her boots kicking up small clouds of dust with each step. The livery was dim and cool inside, smelling strongly of hay and horses. A young man looked up from where he was mending a harness. Within an hour, she found herself seated in a small buggy, following the directions the livery owner had given her. The road west was little more than a rutted track, winding through grassland dotted with scrub brush and the occasional stand of cottonwoods. The mountains seemed to grow larger with each passing minute, dominating the horizon in a way that made Lillian's heart race with something between fear and exhilaration. She had never seen so much open space. In Philadelphia, buildings pressed close on all sides, streets narrow and choked with people and wagons and noise. Here, the silence was almost overwhelming, broken only by the creak of the buggy wheels and the steady clip of the horses' hooves. When she crested a small rise, she saw it. A ranch house nestled in a valley, built of logs that had weathered to silver gray. A barn stood nearby, and several smaller outbuildings dotted the property. Fences marked out pastures where cattle grazed, and she could see the gleam of water, perhaps a stream or small river. A man was working near the barn, his back to her as he hammered at something. Even from a distance, she could see the breadth of his shoulders, the easy competence in his movements. He wore dark trousers and a light-colored shirt with the sleeves rolled up, a hat shading his face. As the buggy drew closer, he straightened and turned. Lillian's breath caught. He was tall, perhaps in his middle 20s, with dark hair that curled slightly at his collar and a face that was handsome in a rugged, weathered way despite his youth. His eyes, she saw as she brought the buggy to a stop, were a striking blue-gray, the color of storm clouds. "Can I help you, madam?" His voice was deep, with a slight drawl that spoke of years in the West. Lillian climbed down from the buggy before he could move to help her, suddenly nervous. "I am looking for Samuel Cross. That would be me." He set down his hammer and wiped his hands on his trousers, studying her with open curiosity. "I am Lillian Foster, Margaret Fletcher's niece." Something shifted in his expression, softening it. "Miss Foster, we have been expecting you. Got word from the lawyer in town that you were on your way." He paused, then removed his hat, holding it respectfully. "I am sorry about your aunt. She was a remarkable woman." "Thank you. I wish I had known her better." Lillian looked past him at the house, at the land stretching out in all directions. "The sheriff said you have been maintaining the property." "Yes, madam. Your aunt and I had an arrangement. I worked the land, tended the cattle, kept things running. In exchange, I lived in the bunkhouse and took a small portion of the profits. It was a fair deal for both of us." He shifted his weight, clearly uncomfortable. "I want you to know that I will move on if that is what you prefer. This is your land now." The words came back to her then, something the lawyer's letter had said but that she had not fully understood until this moment. The property was hers, but there were obligations, agreements her aunt had made. "I do not know anything about running a ranch, Mr. Cross." "Sam," he corrected gently. "Just Sam." "Sam, then, and I am Lillian." She took a breath, making a decision that felt both terrifying and right. "I would like you to stay if you are willing. I will need someone to teach me what needs to be done." The relief on his face was evident, though he tried to hide it. "I would be glad to stay. Your aunt built something good here. It would be a shame to let it fall apart." He gestured toward the house. "Would you like to see inside?" "I have been keeping it clean, but it has been empty since Margaret passed." Lillian followed him up the porch steps, noting the solid construction, the care that had gone into building this place. Sam opened the door and stood back to let her enter first. The interior was simple but comfortable. A main room with a stone fireplace, a kitchen area with a good iron stove, 2 bedrooms, and a loft accessible by a ladder. The furniture was handmade but well crafted. Curtains hung at the windows, faded but clean. Personal items still sat on shelves and tables, a book left open on a chair, reading glasses folded beside it. "She went peacefully," Sam said quietly, watching as Lillian touched a shawl draped over the back of a rocking chair. "One morning she just did not wake up. The doctor said her heart gave out. Were you with her at the end? I checked on her every morning, brought her breakfast. That is how I found her." His voice was rough with emotion. "She looked peaceful, like she was just sleeping." Lillian blinked back tears for this aunt she had barely known but who had given her such an incredible gift. "Thank you for being there, for not leaving her alone out here." "Margaret was like family to me," Sam said simply. "My own folks passed when I was young. She gave me a chance when I was just a kid drifting west with nothing but the clothes on my back and a horse that was half lame. Taught me about ranching, about being a man of honor. I owed her everything." They stood in silence for a moment, connected by their shared loss and gratitude for Margaret Fletcher. "I should let you settle in," Sam said finally. "I will be in the bunkhouse if you need anything. There is food in the pantry and the well water is good. I will bring in some firewood before dark in case it gets cold tonight." "Sam, wait." Lillian turned to face him fully. "I arrived with nothing but this letter and what I could carry. I do not know what I am doing here. I have never lived anywhere but a city." I have no idea how to run a ranch or manage cattle or any of it. I am going to need more than just occasional help." He studied her for a long moment, those storm cloud eyes seeing perhaps more than she intended to reveal. "Your home has been waiting, Lillian. All this time it has been waiting for you. Margaret talked about you sometimes, hoped you would come west someday. Now you are here, and I will help you however I can. We will figure it out together." Something in his words, in the quiet certainty of his voice, made her throat tight with emotion. Your home has been waiting. She had never truly had a home, not really. Just places she lived, rooms she rented, spaces she existed in while working herself to exhaustion in factories and laundries. "Thank you," she managed. "I appreciate that more than you know." After Sam left, Lillian explored the house more thoroughly. In the bedroom that must have been her aunt's, she found a trunk full of clothes. Practical dresses and skirts, nothing fancy, but well made and in much better condition than her own worn garments. A note pinned to the top dress read, "For Lillian, if she comes. Make yourself at home, dear girl." Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. This woman she barely remembered had thought of her, planned for her, hoped for her arrival even knowing she might never come. That night, Lillian lay in the bed that had been her aunt's, listening to sounds she had never heard before. Crickets and night birds, the distant lowing of cattle, the wind moving through the valley. It was so quiet compared to the city, and yet so full of life. She woke before dawn to the sound of Sam moving around outside. Through the window, she watched him head toward the barn in the gray light of early morning. He moved with purpose, comfortable in this world in a way she could not yet imagine being. Lillian dressed in one of her aunt's simpler dresses, a dark brown cotton that fit reasonably well. She braided her long auburn hair and pinned it up, then headed outside. Sam was mucking out stalls when she found him. He looked surprised to see her up so early. "Morning. I hope I did not wake you." "I am used to early mornings. In the factory we started before dawn." He leaned on his pitchfork, studying her. "You worked in a factory for 3 years. Before that I worked in a laundry. Before that I did piecework sewing in our rooms." She lifted her chin slightly. "I am not afraid of hard work, Sam. I just do not know ranch work." A slow smile spread across his face, transforming it. "Then I will teach you, starting today if you are willing." Over the following weeks, Sam proved to be a patient teacher. He showed her how to milk the cow, how to gather eggs from the chickens without getting pecked, how to recognize when the cattle needed to be moved to fresh pasture. He taught her to ride, patiently correcting her seat and her grip on the reins until she could stay mounted at more than a walk. Lillian proved to be a quick study, attacking each new task with the same determination that had kept her alive in the city. Her hands, already calloused from factory work, adapted to new types of labor. She learned to read the weather by watching the mountains, to understand the rhythms of the ranch, and all the while she found herself watching Sam. The way he moved, confident and sure. The way he spoke to the animals, gentle and patient. The way he looked at the land with pride and affection. The way he sometimes looked at her when he thought she was not watching, something warm and wondering in his eyes. One afternoon in early October, they were mending fence together on the far edge of the property. Sam was showing her how to properly tension the wire when she asked, "How old were you when you came here?" 18. "Been here 7 years now. You must have been young when you lost your parents." His hand stilled on the wire. 14. "Cholera took my mother. My father drank himself to death 2 years later. I worked odd jobs for a while, saved enough for a horse and supplies, then headed west. Figured there was nothing for me back in Kansas. I am sorry. That must have been hard." It was. "But finding this place, meeting your aunt, that changed everything. She gave me a purpose." He finished securing the wire and straightened, looking out across the valley. "What about you? The letter said you were in Philadelphia, born and raised there. My mother died when I was 12. My father worked on the docks until an accident crippled him when I was 15. He passed 2 years ago. No other family except Aunt Margaret, and I had not seen her since I was a small child. So you have been on your own for a while." "Yes, making my own way, surviving however I could." She paused, then decided to trust him with the truth. "When that letter came, I thought it was a mistake or a cruel joke. I could not believe someone had left me anything, let alone land and a home. I used my last bit of savings to buy the train ticket west. If it had been a lie, I would have had nothing." Sam turned to look at her, his expression serious. "That was brave." "It was desperate," she corrected. "I was working 16 hours a day in a textile factory for barely enough to pay rent on a single room. I was coughing up lint and slowly going blind from the close work. Another year or two and I would have been used up and thrown away like so many others. Coming here was not bravery. It was survival." He reached out and gently took her hand, the one holding the fence pliers. His hand was warm and rough with calluses. Maybe it was both. They stood like that for a moment, hands touching, eyes meeting. Lillian felt her heart race, felt heat rise to her cheeks. There was something in his eyes, something that made her breath catch. Then Sam released her hand and stepped back, clearing his throat. "We should finish this section before dark." They worked in silence for a while, but something had shifted between them. Lillian could feel it in the air, electric and charged like the moments before a thunderstorm. That evening, she prepared dinner in the ranch house kitchen, using supplies from the pantry and vegetables from the garden Sam had maintained. When it was ready, she walked out to the bunkhouse and knocked. Sam opened the door, surprise clear on his face. "Lillian." "I made too much food," she said, which was not entirely true. "I thought you might join me for dinner instead of cooking for yourself." He hesitated, and she could see him wrestling with something. Finally, he nodded. "I would like that, thank you." They ate at the simple table in the main room. Venison stew and fresh biscuits that Lillian had learned to make from a recipe book she had found among her aunt's things. The conversation flowed easily, ranging from ranch business to stories of their different childhoods, her in the crowded city and him in rural Kansas. "Margaret used to say that the land chooses people," Sam said, sopping up the last of his stew with a piece of biscuit. "That some folks are meant for it and some are not, and you can tell pretty quick which is which." "What do you think she would say about me?" Lillian asked, genuinely curious. Sam was quiet for a moment, his eyes thoughtful. "I think she would say the land chose you long before you got here. That is why she left it to you. But she barely knew me. She knew enough. And I think—" He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. "I think she saw something in you through her brother, your father. She used to say he had sand, that he was tough and determined. Sounds like you got that from him." Lillian felt tears prick her eyes. "I wish I could have known her better." "She would have liked knowing you too," Sam said gently. "She would have been proud of how hard you are working to learn all this." After that evening, dinner together became a regular occurrence. Some nights Lillian cooked, some nights Sam did. They talked and laughed and slowly, carefully, built something that felt like friendship but ran deeper, currents of attraction and possibility flowing beneath every conversation. The weather turned colder as October progressed. The aspens on the mountainsides blazed gold and orange, and frost touched the grass each morning. Sam taught Lillian how to prepare the ranch for winter, bringing the cattle down from the high pastures, checking and repairing the barn, stacking firewood. One afternoon, they rode out to check on a section of fence that might have been damaged in a recent windstorm. The day was clear and cool, the sky so blue it almost hurt to look at. They found the fence intact and decided to rest for a few minutes before heading back. Sitting on a large, flat rock overlooking the valley, sharing water from a canteen, Lillian said, "I never imagined I could be happy somewhere like this. It is so different from everything I knew." "Are you?" Sam asked quietly. "Happy here," she thought about it, really thought about it. "Yes. For the first time in longer than I can remember, I feel like I am living instead of just surviving. I wake up each morning and actually look forward to the day instead of dreading it. I am glad." His voice was warm. "You belong here, Lillian. I knew it the moment you stepped down from that buggy." She turned to look at him. "How could you know that, the way you looked at the land, like you recognized it even though you had never been here before, like you were coming home?" "Maybe I was," she said softly. Sam reached over and took her hand, lacing his fingers through hers. This time he did not pull away. "Lillian, I need to tell you something." Her heart hammered in her chest. "What is it?" "I have been trying to keep things professional between us. You are my employer, technically. This is your land and I work for you. But I cannot keep pretending that is all there is." He turned to face her fully, his eyes intense. "I think about you constantly, when I am working, when I am trying to sleep, every moment. You have gotten under my skin and into my heart, and I do not know what to do about it." Lillian's breath caught. "Sam, I know I do not have much to offer. I am just a ranch hand and you own this land. But I am asking if there might be a chance for something more between us, if you feel even a fraction of what I feel for you." She squeezed his hand, her own trembling slightly. "I feel it too. I have been trying not to, telling myself it was too soon, too complicated. But every time I see you, every time we talk, I fall a little more." The smile that broke across his face was like sunrise. "Really? Really?" She laughed, feeling giddy and terrified and more alive than ever. "I do not know what I am doing, Sam. I have never felt like this before." "Neither have I," he admitted. "We will figure it out together." He leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted. She did not want to. When his lips met hers, soft and warm and tasting of coffee and possibility, Lillian felt something click into place, like a piece of herself she had not known was missing had finally been found. They rode back to the ranch as the sun was setting, painting the mountains in shades of pink and gold. Everything looked different now, charged with new meaning. This was not just her land anymore. It was theirs, a place they could build something together. Over the following weeks, their relationship deepened. They stole kisses while working, held hands while walking, sat close together by the fire in the evenings. Sam moved from the bunkhouse to the ranch house, and they navigated the newness of sharing space, learning each other's habits and rhythms. In early November, Sam rode into town for supplies and came back with news. "There is a dance at the church next Saturday. I was thinking, if you are willing, we could go together. Let folks see that we are courting proper." Lillian felt nervous at the idea. "I have not been to anything social since I arrived. What if people do not accept me?" "They will," Sam said confidently. "You are Margaret Fletcher's niece. That counts for a lot around here. And besides, you are with me, and I will not let anyone say a word against you." The protective note in his voice made her smile. "All right. I will need to find something suitable to wear." In her aunt's trunk, she found a dress of deep green wool that fit well with only minor alterations. The night of the dance, she put it on and arranged her hair in a softer style, leaving some curls loose around her face. When she emerged from the bedroom, Sam stared at her with open admiration. "You look beautiful," he said, his voice rough. "You clean up pretty well yourself," she replied, taking in his pressed trousers, clean white shirt, and string tie. The church hall was already crowded when they arrived. Lanterns hung from the rafters and a small band played in the corner. People turned to look as Sam and Lillian entered, and she felt her nerves spike. But then Sam put his hand on the small of her back, steady and reassuring, and guided her into the room. The sheriff approached them first, greeting them warmly. Several other ranchers and their families came over to be introduced. Most were friendly, offering condolences about Margaret and welcoming Lillian to the community. A few were more reserved, clearly taking her measure. When the music started, Sam led her onto the floor. "I should warn you, I am not much of a dancer." "Neither am I," Lillian admitted. "We will stumble through it together." They did stumble a bit, but they laughed about it, and soon Lillian found she was actually enjoying herself. Around them, other couples swirled and swayed, and the hall filled with music and laughter. During a break between songs, a woman approached them. She was perhaps in her 40s, handsome rather than pretty, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. "You must be Lillian Foster." "I am Dorothy Thompson. Your aunt and I were friends." "It is nice to meet you, Mrs. Thompson." "Dorothy, please. I wanted to tell you that Margaret spoke of you often, especially near the end. She hoped you would come west. She wanted you to have the opportunity she had found here." "That means a great deal to me. Thank you." Dorothy glanced at Sam, then back at Lillian. "I also wanted to say that I approve of you and Sam. Margaret would have approved too. She always hoped he would find a good woman and settle down proper." After she moved away, Lillian leaned closer to Sam. "Did everyone know you were not actually settled before?" He grinned. "Small town. Everyone knows everything eventually." As the evening wore on, Lillian relaxed. People were friendlier than she had expected, curious about her but not unkind. Several women invited her to quilting circles and church socials. Men discussed ranching with Sam and included her in the conversations when she proved she actually knew something about cattle and crops. On the ride home under a sky blazing with stars, Lillian said, "That was not as terrifying as I expected. Told you they would like you." Sam reached over and took her hand. "You are part of this community now, part of this place." "I am starting to believe that." When they arrived home, Sam helped her down from the wagon and pulled her close. "I love you, Lillian. I know it is fast, but it is true." Her heart swelled. "I love you too. I think I have from almost the beginning. I was just too scared to admit it." "Do not be scared," he murmured against her hair. "I am not going anywhere. This is where I belong with you." Winter came hard and fast that year. Snow blanketed the valley and temperatures dropped well below freezing. But the ranch house was snug, the fireplace kept them warm, and they had laid in ample supplies. They spent the long winter evenings reading aloud to each other, playing cards, talking about their dreams for the ranch and their future. On Christmas Eve, Sam presented Lillian with a small box. Inside was a ring, simple gold with a small garnet stone. "It was my mother's," he said. "The only thing I have from her. I want you to have it if you will marry me." Tears streamed down Lillian's face as she nodded. "Yes, yes, absolutely yes." They married in January, in the same church where they had danced. Dorothy Thompson and several other women helped Lillian prepare, lending her a veil and helping her alter her best dress. The ceremony was simple but heartfelt, and when the preacher pronounced them man and wife, the small gathering of townspeople cheered. At the reception afterward, held in the church hall, Dorothy pulled Lillian aside. Margaret would be so happy to see this. She always said this ranch needed a family to make it complete. You and Sam, you are that family now. "I wish she could have been here," Lillian said wistfully. "Part of her is, dear. She is in this land, in that house, in the life she built and passed on to you. That is a powerful kind of legacy." Spring brought new life to the valley. Calves were born, the garden needed planting, and there were 100 tasks that required attention. Lillian and Sam worked side by side, partners in every sense of the word. One evening in late April, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the mountains in shades of rose and lavender, Lillian said, "I have news." Sam turned to her, attentive. "What kind of news?" "The good kind. I am with child. The baby should come in early November." The joy on his face was radiant. He pulled her into his arms, holding her carefully. "A baby? We are going to have a baby. Are you happy?" she asked, though she could see the answer clearly. "Happy does not begin to cover it. Lillian, you have given me everything. A home, a purpose, love, and now a family. I never dreamed I could have all this." "Neither did I," she admitted. "A year ago I was alone in Philadelphia with nothing but factory work and empty days ahead. Now look at us." The pregnancy progressed smoothly. Lillian continued working as long as she could, though Sam grew increasingly protective as her belly swelled. Dorothy and the other ranch women visited regularly, bringing advice and supplies and welcome company. In early November, during a cold snap that frosted the windows and dusted the ground with snow, Lillian went into labor. Dorothy and the midwife, a capable woman named Sarah, attended her while Sam paced outside, too nervous to sit still. After long hours of hard labor, Lillian delivered a healthy baby boy just as dawn broke over the mountains. When Sam was finally allowed into the room, he approached the bed with tears streaming down his face. "A son," Lillian said softly, exhausted but glowing with joy. "We have a son." Sam reached out with trembling hands to hold the tiny bundle. "He is perfect. You are amazing. I love you so much." They named him Thomas Fletcher Cross, honoring Lillian's father and Margaret's sacrifice that had brought them all together. Tom, as they called him, proved to be a healthy, happy baby with his father's blue-gray eyes and his mother's auburn hair. The ranch house that had been so quiet for so long now rang with baby cries and laughter. 2 years later, a daughter joined the family. Emily Margaret Cross had Lillian's green eyes and Sam's dark hair. She was born during a spring thunderstorm, coming into the world with the same dramatic flair she would show throughout her life. The ranch prospered under Sam and Lillian's joint management. They expanded the herd, improved the buildings, and built a reputation for quality cattle and fair dealing. Other ranchers came to respect Sam's expertise and Lillian's sharp business sense. As the years passed, Tom and Emily grew strong and healthy, learning to ride before they could properly walk, following their parents around the ranch and soaking up knowledge about this life they had been born into. The bunkhouse was expanded to house 2 seasonal workers who helped during the busy times. One autumn evening when Tom was 7 and Emily was 5. The family sat on the porch watching the sunset, as had become their tradition. Tom was whittling a piece of wood under his father's supervision while Emily sat in Lillian's lap, sleepy after a long day of play. "Tell us about how you met again," Emily demanded, as she often did. Lillian exchanged a smile with Sam. "Well, I arrived with nothing but a letter from Aunt Margaret. I had traveled all the way from Philadelphia, not knowing what I would find. And Papa was here waiting," Tom chimed in, knowing the story by heart. "He was," Lillian confirmed, "and he said something I will never forget." "What did I say?" Sam asked, playing along even though they all knew. "You said, 'Your home has been waiting,' and it was true. This place, this life, all of you, you were all waiting for me even though I did not know it." Sam reached over and took her hand, the same gesture that had meant so much during their early courtship. "Best day of my life when you stepped down from that buggy." "Second best," Lillian corrected with a smile. "The best was when we got married, or maybe when Tom was born, or Emily." "All the days with you have been the best days," Sam said, making her laugh. "You are getting sentimental in your old age," she teased. He was only 32, hardly old, but he played along. "Can you blame me? Look at what we have built." Lillian looked around at the ranch they had improved and expanded, at the children they were raising, at the life they had created together. "No, I cannot blame you at all." That winter brought heavy snows, and they found themselves snowed in for almost 2 weeks. But the house was warm, the pantry well stocked, and the family was together. They played games, told stories, and taught the children their letters and numbers. Sam carved toys while Lillian sewed clothes for the growing children. During one particularly fierce blizzard, huddled close to the fire while the wind howled outside, Tom asked, "Were you scared when you came here, Mama?" Lillian considered the question. "Yes, I was terrified. I did not know what I would find, if the letter was real, if I would be able to make a life here. But I was also desperate and determined. Sometimes being brave means being scared but doing the thing anyway." "I am glad you were brave," Emily said seriously. "Otherwise we would not be here." "That is very true," Sam said, pulling his daughter onto his lap. "Your mother is the bravest person I know." "What about you, Papa?" Tom asked. "Were you scared when Mama came?" Sam thought about it. In a different way. "I was afraid she would sell the ranch or hire someone else to run it and send me away. I was afraid of losing this place that had become my home." "But then you fell in love," Emily said with the confidence of a child who had heard the story many times. "But then we fell in love," Sam agreed. "And everything changed. Suddenly it was not just my home or her home. It was our home, ours to build together." As spring returned and the snow melted, revealing the greening grass beneath, Lillian found herself pregnant again. This pregnancy was harder than the previous two, and she tired more easily. Sam insisted she rest more, taking on extra work himself and hiring another hand to help with the heavy labor. In late summer, Lillian delivered twins, a boy and a girl. The birth was difficult, and for a few terrifying hours, Sam feared he might lose her. But Lillian proved as strong as ever, and both babies were healthy despite being small. They named the twins William Samuel and Catherine Dorothy, honoring both Sam's father and their good friend Dorothy Thompson, who had been a constant support and friend to Lillian. With 4 children under the age of 8, life became wonderfully chaotic. The house that had once been silent now burst with noise and life. Toys scattered across the floor, children's laughter rang from the rafters, and every day brought new adventures and challenges. Tom proved to be a natural rancher, following Sam everywhere and absorbing knowledge like a sponge. Emily was more interested in the business side, often sitting with Lillian when she worked on the books or wrote correspondence. The twins were still young, but already showing distinct personalities. William was quiet and thoughtful, while Catherine was bold and adventurous. One day when Tom was 10, he came running into the house, excited. "Mama, Papa, come quick. There is a woman at the gate with a baby and she looks lost." Sam and Lillian exchanged glances and hurried outside. Sure enough, a young woman stood by the ranch entrance, dusty and tired-looking, holding a small child. She looked frightened and uncertain. "Can we help you?" Lillian called out as they approached, the woman's eyes filled with tears. "I am looking for work, any kind of work. I can cook and clean and sew. I just need a place to stay and food for my baby. Please." Lillian recognized the desperation in her eyes, the fear and exhaustion. It was how she herself must have looked years ago, arriving with nothing but hope and determination. "What is your name?" she asked gently. Anna Miller. This is my son, Joseph. He is 6 months old." "Where is your husband?" Anna's face crumpled. "Dead. Mining accident 3 months ago. I have been trying to make it on my own, but I ran out of money and options." Sam and Lillian looked at each other, having a silent conversation. Finally, Sam nodded. "We have a small cabin behind the barn," Lillian said. "It is not much, but it is clean and dry. You and Joseph can stay there. We can use help with the house and children if you are willing to work." The relief on Anna's face was profound. "I will work hard, I promise. Thank you so much." Over the following months, Anna proved to be a godsend. She was excellent with the children, a skilled cook, and a hard worker. Little Joseph thrived in the ranch environment, and soon he was toddling around after the other children, absorbed into the family. One evening, after Anna had been with them for about a year, she approached Lillian hesitantly. "I need to tell you something." "What is it?" Lillian asked, concerned by her serious tone. "I have saved up some money from my wages, enough to move on if I need to, and one of the men in town has asked if he could court me. He is a good man, a widower with a farm, but I do not want to leave here if you need me." "You all have been so good to Joseph and me." Lillian smiled and took Anna's hand. "Of course you should explore this. You deserve happiness and a chance at a new life, just like I had. We will miss you if you decide to go, but we will also be happy for you." "I feel guilty," Anna admitted. "You gave me a chance when I had nothing." "Then pay it forward someday," Lillian said. "If you find yourself in a position to help someone desperate and scared, do it. That is how we build a better world." Anna did marry the farmer, a kind man named Robert who adored both her and Joseph. But she remained close to the Cross family, visiting often and maintaining a friendship that would last the rest of their lives. As Tom entered his teenage years, he began taking on more responsibility around the ranch. He was tall like his father, with the same easy way with horses and cattle. Emily, at 11, showed a remarkable head for figures and helped her mother increasingly with the business aspects of running the ranch. The twins, now 7, were inseparable. William was developing an interest in the natural world, collecting rocks and studying plants. Catherine was fearless, always climbing higher, riding faster, pushing boundaries. One spring, when Lillian was 35 and Sam was 38, they took a rare trip into the growing town of Montrose together, leaving the children in Tom and Emily's capable hands along with the ranch hands. The town had grown considerably since Lillian's arrival 13 years earlier. New buildings lined the streets, and there was even talk of a proper school being built. As they walked together, Lillian marveled at how much had changed. "You ever regret it?" Sam asked as they sat together in the restaurant, a luxury they rarely enjoyed. "Leaving Philadelphia, coming west, all of it." Lillian looked at him incredulously. "Regret it? Sam, coming here was the best decision I ever made. It saved my life in every way that matters. I just want to make sure you are happy, that this life is enough for you." She reached across the table and took his hand. "This life is everything. You are everything. Our children, our home, our work together. I could not ask for more." "I love you," he said simply. "More now than even on our wedding day, and I loved you desperately then." "I love you too. Thank you for being patient with me in the beginning, for teaching me, for building this life with me. Thank you for taking a chance on a cowboy with nothing but a good horse and a strong back," he replied with a smile. That evening, as they drove the wagon back to the ranch, the sunset painting the sky in brilliant colors, Lillian leaned against Sam's shoulder and felt profound contentment. This was home. This was family. This was everything she had never dared to dream of having. The years continued to pass, marked by seasons and growth. Tom turned 18 and proved himself invaluable on the ranch. Sam began teaching him everything about managing the property, preparing him to one day take over. Emily, at 16, was already handling most of the ranch accounts and correspondence, her sharp mind and good sense making her a true partner in the business. The twins, now 12, were coming into their own. William's interest in the natural world had developed into a real talent for understanding weather patterns and soil conditions, knowledge that proved useful for ranching. Catherine was the best rider of all the children, fearless and skilled. One autumn evening, the whole family gathered on the porch as had been their tradition for years. The children were older now, some nearly grown, but they still enjoyed these quiet moments together. "Tell us about the letter again," Catherine asked. Even though she was probably too old for such stories now, Lillian pulled the original letter from her pocket. She still carried it sometimes, a reminder of how everything had begun. The paper was worn soft now, the creases deep from years of folding and unfolding. "Your great-aunt Margaret wrote this to me," she began. "It came to me in Philadelphia when I was working in a factory, barely surviving. It told me I had inherited this ranch and to find your father when I got here." "And you came even though you were scared," William said. "I came because I was scared," Lillian corrected. "Scared of what would happen if I stayed where I was, slowly being used up by poverty and exhaustion. This letter offered hope, and I grabbed onto it with both hands." "Best thing that ever happened to this ranch," Sam said, pulling her close. "Your mother arriving that day." "You were waiting for her," Emily said, "at the barn." "I was." "And when she stepped down from that buggy, dusty and tired and trying so hard to be brave, I knew my life had just changed forever." Tom, mature beyond his 18 years, said, "It is a good story, a good legacy, about taking chances and building something lasting." "That is exactly what it is," Lillian agreed. "Your father and I took a chance on each other on this land, on building a life together. And look what came from it. All of you, this ranch, this family. It is more than I ever imagined possible." As the sun set and the first stars appeared, the family sat together in comfortable silence. The ranch stretched out around them, prosperous and well-tended. Cattle lowed in the distance. The mountains stood eternal against the darkening sky. This was home. This was family. This was the life that had been waiting for Lillian when she arrived with nothing but a letter and a desperate hope. Sam had been right all those years ago. Her home had been waiting, and together they had made it into something beautiful and lasting. Years later, when Lillian and Sam were in their 50s and the children were grown with families of their own, they still sat on that porch at sunset, hands clasped together, watching the light fade over the mountains. Tom ran the ranch now with his wife and children, but Sam still helped out, unable to completely give up the work he loved. "You remember that first day?" Lillian asked. "When I arrived and you were working by the barn," Sam smiled, the lines around his eyes crinkling. "Every detail. You looked exhausted and terrified and determined. I thought you were beautiful. I thought you looked capable and kind. I was so relieved that you were willing to stay and help me." "I would have done anything to stay," he admitted. "I was already half in love with you before you even said a word. Something about the way you looked at the land, like you recognized it." "I did recognize it in a way, as home, as possibility, as everything I had been searching for without knowing it." They sat quietly for a while, comfortable in the silence that comes from decades of companionship. Around them, the ranch bustled with life. Tom's children played in the yard. Emily, visiting with her own family from the nearby town where she and her husband ran a successful mercantile, called out to them. "You know," Sam said thoughtfully, "I think about Margaret sometimes, about how she made all this possible by believing you would come, by leaving you this place." "I think about her too," Lillian said. "I wish I could tell her how grateful I am, how her gift changed everything." "I think she knows," Sam said, gesturing to the bustling ranch around them. "This is her legacy as much as ours. She started it, we built it, and now our children and grandchildren will carry it forward." As the sun finally dipped below the mountains and the stars began to emerge in the darkening sky, Lillian leaned her head on Sam's shoulder. "I arrived with nothing but a letter," she murmured. "And I told you your home had been waiting," Sam finished, kissing the top of her head. "It had been. It always had been. We just had to find each other first." The end.